Hey guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. My name's Amanda, and today I want to share with you the books that I read during the first half of middle grade March. Okay, so it has been a while since I've done an official wrap up. I had been doing recent reads for a while, and then I kind of just stopped wrapping up my books altogether. So bear with me here. But I want to share with you the books that I've read so far during middle grade March. I have so far have read 19 books. Today is the 19th of March, so that kind of puts me on track to do a book a day. However, caveat, 3 of the books were short stories that were very, very, very fast reads, and so I'm going to actually only count that as one as far as doing a book a day sort of thing, because I listened to them as a like compilation. They were Roald Dahl short stories, and so anyway, I'm gonna say officially that I've read 17 books. So there's my caveat. But some of these have been shorter, some have been longer. That's just kind of what you get when you do middle grade. And so I am gonna just kind of dig right in, and I'm just gonna go from the top of the pile down and let's see what we got. So the first book on this pile is actually one of my favorites that I've read this month. I've read a lot of just mediocre books. Very few have been like stand out really, really great. And this one I really, really loved, and that is Iceberg by Jennifer A. Nielsen. I read this for the prompt to read a book published within the last year. This was just published this year, like in March or February. So I picked this up from a Scholastic book fair for one of my kids. I saw it there and I was like, I need to read this. This is a story about the Titanic, and it follows Hazel, who is Scottish, and she kind of stows away on the Titanic, and it's her story of what she runs into on the Titanic. However, Hazel wants to be a writer when she grows up, and so she's constantly looking for things that she has questions about and asking all these questions. And so throughout the book, as she's asking these questions, you get information about the Titanic, about the icebergs that they were concerned about why there weren't as many lifeboats, about, different things like that. And so the difference, like why they had the double hole bottom versus the double hole on the sides of the ship, and different things that contributed to the sinking of the Titanic, you learn about through her asking these questions as she's learning different bits and pieces about the ship. So I thought it was a really clever way to kind of work in facts about the Titanic without making it seem like a nonfiction book. I thought it was really, really good. It was high stakes, but great for middle graders. I thought it was fantastic. In case I haven't said that already, I gave this 4.5 stars. I thought it was great. So highly recommend that one. All right, one of the books that I read for the Read a Book about a neurodivergent main character is A Mango Shaped Space by Wendy Mass. This is about a girl with synesthesia, and I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really, really well done. There were parts of it that made me a little bit teary. The main character's name is Mia, and she has kind of kept secret for a long time that she correlates colors with numbers and letters and words and sounds and things like that. And through this book, she kind of lets those secrets out to her family and to her friends, and she's learning how to deal with it by going to psychologists or psychiatrists and learning what synesthesia is and how she can deal with it. And I thought it was really interesting, really well done. This kind of falls into that category, I guess, of books where you have a kid who is 12, 13, I don't know, middle grade, they're always 12. So I'm figuring she's probably 12. And she has had this issue her whole life, and she's never talked about it with anybody, which to me is a little bit like, huh? And so, I mean, take it for what it is. I could understand if you were like 7 or 8 and you had never really talked about it with anybody, but to not have at least told your parents or your best friends like that oh, don't you see it this way, or don't you see it that way? To me was a little bit unbelievable, but I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. All right. And next up, oh, I still have my bookmark in here. I read Otter. This is the newest book by Catherine Applegate. This is a book in verse about an otter named Otter, and she is attacked by a great white shark, and she has to go live in I forget what it's called, like not an aquarium, but like a wildlife rescue. And so it's just kind of about her time there and the humans and how they are treating the animals, and trying to provide them with the best life that they can. And it was really informative while also being really simple and really endearing. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't one of my favorite books in verse, but it was still a lot of fun, and it had some really cute illustrations in it. Let's see if I can find one of them. But I mean, there's just like little illustrations of otters throughout it, and who doesn't love an otter? So that one. I also finally read, I read this one for a book with sea and sky on the cover. Sea or sky on the cover. The Penderwicks. I finally finished The Penderwicks by Jane Birdsall. This is a realistic fiction. It's not contemporary, but it is realistic fiction. It reads like a classic, but it's not. It was published in the 90s, I think. So it's 2005. So it's definitely not a classic, but it reads like a classic. And it is about this family of 4 girls and a dog, and them going to spend their summer on this like grand estate. They're spending the summer in this guest house on this grand estate, and they meet a couple of friends along the way, and just kind of the shenanigans they get into. I thought it was really good. I read this one for a book that won an award that wasn't the Newbery, because it won the National Book Award. And I really, really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. All right. And then I read Moon Garden. This is the first book in the Plotting the Stars series. It's a new series by Michelle A. Berry. And this is a sci-fi retelling of The Secret Garden. And I loved this book. First of all, this cover is amazing. That's what first drew me to this book. It's just such a good cover. I love it so much. But this retelling of The Secret Garden was so well done. It was so clever. It wasn't too on point. Like, it wasn't, my friend Katie would say, like a 1-for-1, like it wasn't an exact retelling, but it was definitely heavily inspired by The Secret Garden, and it was so good. It follows our main character, whose name is Myra, who is living in this community on the moon where vegetation has poisoned the earth, and so any vegetation or like plants at all are seen to be dangerous. And she finds this secret garden and cultivates it, and learns that she has some special abilities within the garden, and is trying to teach others that maybe gardens and plants aren't dangerous. Or anyway, it's good. It's very, very good. I really, really, really liked it. You should read it. You should get it, because it's a debut author, and it was phenomenal. 4.5 stars. All right, next I read this very simple nonfiction book. This is Signs of Survival, a memoir of the Holocaust by Renee Hartman and Joshua M. Green. Joshua M. Green has done, I guess, quite a few collaborations with people who are writing memoirs for middle graders. This is like I said, a very simple, very short, like I read it in under an hour book. About a girl, 2 sisters, one of them's deaf, one of them's hearing, and how they survived the Holocaust. Mainly we follow Renee, who is the only hearing person in her family. Her younger sister and her parents are both deaf, and they live in Bratislava during World War II, and eventually her and her sister are sent to a concentration camp together. They're sent to Bergen, oh my goodness, what is the name of it? Bergen-Belsen. I couldn't remember the name. Bergen-Belsen, which was the same concentration camp that Anne Frank was sent to. And this, actually about halfway through is when they are the war ends and they are freed from the concentration camp, and then it follows their story past that as well, which I really appreciated that aspect of it. However, it was a very, very simple story. This would actually make a great historical fiction book, if like you could expound upon it more. I understand that like they really had to stick to what Renee remembered and her, you know, the nonfiction aspect of it, which when you're 9 years old, you don't remember the all the details. But there were definitely some heartbreaking moments in this. I thought it was a really actually a good intro, not intro, but like a good experience for kids to experience the Holocaust, because they did keep it pretty low key. I would hand this to a third grader, no problem. And so, yeah, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So, all right. And then I listened to the 3 short stories by Roald Dahl, the first of which was The Twits. I listened to The Twits, The Minpins, and The Magic Finger. It was an audio compilation of the 3 of those. And I loved every single one of them. I've heard a lot of people don't like The Magic Finger. I loved it. I loved The Minpins. It was so fantastical and great. I really, really enjoyed The Twits. It was hilarious. I want to hand this to my 3rd grader. I think that she would really, really like this. And of course, the illustrations by Quentin Blake are just iconic. I thought this was fantastic. Okay, so The Twits is about these 2 people that are not great. They're not nice to each other, and some animals that are around them decide to play a trick on them, and it's just tomfoolery and ridiculousness and hilarious. And then The Minpins is about a boy who's told not to go into the woods, and he does, and he runs into the Minpins who help him kind of vanquish some of the monsters in the woods. And then The Magic Finger is about a girl with a magic finger who is able to, her neighbors hunt and she doesn't like it, and so one day she turns her neighbors into ducks, which is what they were hunting, and gives the ducks the guns and kind of teaches them a lesson about hunting. I thought it was really funny and fantastic, and I understand it might not be for everybody, but I really loved all 3 of them. So there's that. All right. I also listened to Midnight Children by Danica Minehart. This is his newest release. I also read this for a book published within the last year. I thought this was really, really good. It definitely went in a direction that I wasn't expecting. It definitely was a different writing style than I'm used to from Danica Minehart. I've read a couple of his books, and this one was a lot more like whimsical. It just was a very different writing style, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't, like I said, what I was expecting from it. You definitely had to suspend your belief for a large part of it, but it was still really fun and enjoyable. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I still really, really love this cover, and I really love Danica Minehart as an author, so there's that. I read The Thing I'm Most Afraid of by Kristen Levine, which is one that I started last year during middle grade March, but never finished. This is a book set during the Bosnian War and follows our main character, I don't remember what her name is, Becca, who suffers from severe anxiety. She's going to visit her father, who is like a foreign correspondent in Vienna, Austria, which is where a lot of the refugees fled during the Bosnian War, and her au pair or nanny, who is a refugee of the Bosnian War. And so you learn a lot about Sarah and her, who is the nanny, and her family and her circumstances. And also you follow Becca as she is trying to face some of her fears. And her dad's girlfriend's son is also with them and is trying to face some of his fears, and so the 3 of them are just really trying to like bond and get over some of these things together, and it was really interesting and really good. It wasn't as great as I was hoping it was going to be, but I gave it a solid 3.5 stars. I thought it was really a good read and a really good representation of anxiety. All right. And so this one obviously was for a neurodivergent character as well. And then I have another one featuring a neurodivergent character, and that is Focused. This is by Allison Gerber, and this is an own voices book about ADHD. And this girl who has ADHD, she's probably 12, but she has gone undiagnosed, and finally in school, a lot of things. She's having issues with friends, she's having issues in school, and so her parents decide to get her tested upon the recommendation of her counselor, and find out that she has ADHD. And it really focuses on, this is a very info heavy book on ADHD and the manifestations of it, different ways that it presents itself, as well as some of the pros and cons of ADHD. It talks about the hyperfixation and how you're able to really focus on things when you're interested in them, or when you but also how you're very easily distracted and how you blurt things out. It was just such a good education on ADHD, I felt like, and some of the things that kids are up against when they are diagnosed with ADHD. And so I thought it was really, really good. I gave that one 4 stars. As you can tell, I give a lot of 4 stars out. It is what it is. All right, one of the first books that I listened to this month was Ode to a Nobody. This is by Carolyn Brooks Dubois. And this is a book in verse about a girl who is just trying to find her place in the world, and then this big tornado hits her town, and everything is just kind of in upheaval, and she's trying to find her place and trying to make sense of things. And it was such a good book in verse. It's not one that will probably stick with me for a very long time, but I thought it was really, really well done. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I would highly recommend checking this out if you're looking for a good book in verse to read. All right, I read the next installment in the Babysitter's Club graphic novel series. This one is Marianne's Bad Luck Mystery, and it is done by Cynthia, Wang, Cheng. The Babysitter's Club graphic novels are kind of done by a bunch of different artists, and so this is the newest rendition, and this is all about Marianne getting a chain letter, throwing it away, and then having all this bad luck happening to her all at once, and her trying to figure out why. And it was a fun time. Was it anything great? No. But was it a fun time? Yes. 3 stars. All right, and then the books that I don't have in front of me that I have read, I listened to The Grace of Wildlings by Heather Fawcett. This is an Anne of Green Gables retelling, but it's witchy. It's kind of described as The Girl Who Drinks the Moon meets Anne of Green Gables, and it was so good. I like this so much more than The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which I know is a spicy take because I was not a fan of The Girl Who Drank the Moon, but I loved Anne of Green Gables, and this is definitely heavily inspired, kind of like Moon Garden, where it's heavily inspired by Anne of Green Gables, but it's not a exact retelling of it. We follow our main character Grace, who is a witchling, and she finds this witch in the woods, and the witch in the woods kind of takes her under her wing and makes a deal with her, and takes care of her. The Witch in the Woods is the Marilla character from Anne of Green Gables, and Grace is the Anne character, and she meets some friends along the way in the form of a fairy named Rum, who is Gilbert, inspired by Gilbert. And you get to see kind of the other friends that she meets, the things that happen. It's so fun because there are definitely some of those iconic scenes from Anne of Green Gables built into the story, but it is a story in and of itself, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. All right. I also listened to Alone by Megan E. Freeman. This is a book in verse about a girl who is left alone. So it is kind of marketed as a dystopian book, a survivalist story. It is about a girl who makes plans to spend the night with her 2 friends at her parents' or at her grandparents' summer cottage, and then something happens. She's already at the cottage, and her 2 friends can't make it, and so she stays there by herself, and then she wakes up the next day and everybody's gone. Everybody's been evacuated for something, and she is left alone in her town by herself, and there's no way for her to contact anybody. All the cell phones have been left behind. She doesn't really know what to do, and so she has to survive for 3 years in this town by herself, and it is just a survival story, and I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was so well done. I will say there is a lot of animal cruelty in this book. There is a specific scene that I thought was a little over the top for a middle grade book. It was definitely a little bit of an older middle grade book for that reason. It was just a little intense and did not need to be there, in my opinion. But outside of that, I really enjoyed it. And so I gave this one 4 stars as well. I told you, a lot of 4 stars going on. All right, and then I read a poetry collection. This was on my NetGalley list as I was going through all the middle grade books that I had on NetGalley. This one popped up, and I was like, oh, I could definitely read that. And it is called Tales of Whimsy, Verses of Woe. It's by Tim DeRoche, and it is a poetry book, kind of in the vein of a Shel Silverstein style poetry collection. It's a lot of nonsense. Not a lot of the poems really stuck with me. There were 1 or 2 that I thought were really clever and really good, but for the most part, it was just kind of middle of the road mediocre. 3 stars for me, nothing fantastic. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the next installment in the New Kid series by Jerry Craft. This one is called School Trip. It comes out in the beginning of April. I read it on NetGalley again, and it is a graphic novel. And this one follows the same group of kids that we have followed through New Kid and Class Act, except this time they're going on a school trip to Paris. And it talks a lot about traveling internationally, especially as a Black person or a person of color, and it kind of really focuses on just the stigma that goes with traveling and traveling abroad and the opportunity that it provides. I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. However, I will say there were also aspects of the book, especially when they weren't traveling, that I felt were forced. There were topics that were brought up that had no relation to the story at all, and we're just kind of thrown in as a, oh yeah, and this too, I need to make this point too, which I didn't appreciate. I really like Jerry Craft's graphic novels because they do speak to some of the adversity that BIPOC people are put up against, and I can appreciate that. But if the story has a flow to it and there is specific points put in just to make the point and they don't have anything to do with the story in and of itself, that I don't appreciate. So this one I ended up giving 3.5 stars. I thought it was well done, but there were some things that didn't land as well for me. So those are the 19 books that I have read, or 17, that I have read so far in the month of March. I will be back at the end of the month to share with you the rest of the books that I read this month. I would love to hear what you've read so far this March. Have you found a new favorite? Are you participating in middle grade March? All of those things. And yeah, that's going to do it for today. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya.